And now comes the exciting bit. We are finally ready to plant our newly hydrated bare root rose. And at this stage, it's really important, as I said in the last video, not to undo all the hard work you've done of getting your rose rehydrated. My country parson, you might be able to see just off to my left, is stuck in the top of a watering can. And at this stage, you're going to need several things close to hand. You're going to need yourself some decent gardening gloves for handling the rose and getting yourself down into the soil. You're going to need a fork. I tend to use a border fork, a smaller one, and also a spade. I tend to favour this transplanting spade from Bergen and Ball. It allows me to dig nice and deep holes. You're going to have to create a hole here that's around 40 centimetres in diameter and around 40 to 60 centimetres in depth. You're also going to need some really good quality, either well-rotted horse or cow manure, something that's around 2.5 to 3 years old, or some good quality 100% organic compost. If you're planting in a pot, I'll talk you through the media in the next video. Optional as well, you will need to make sure that you have water on hand to make sure you water the rose as soon as it goes into the ground. Even if your soil is wet or rain is forecast, it is really important at this stage to get it established and get it away as soon as possible. And if you want to, you can also have some of the fungal stimulus from David Austin Roses available as well. So let's get going and start digging this hole. Right, lots of huffing and puffing now. Digging on camera is never easy. As I say, you're looking to create a hole around 40 centimetres in diameter and between 40 and 60 centimetres in depth. Now, it really does very much depend on the size of the rose that you have been delivered. Some roses will have much larger root systems than others. Obviously, the smaller roses that are only reaching 2 or 3 feet in size were obviously going to be much more small and compact. So use your spade nice and hard. You want to really open up that soil, say to a depth of around 40 to 60 centimeters. And what you want to do is you want to remove a little bit more soil than you probably would do normally, because you're going to backfill with some lovely organic compost, or as I say, some well-rotted horse or cow manure, just to give your rose the best possible start. Right, we're nearly there. Just remove the last of this loosened soil. You can see here the soil here at North Lodge is absolutely beautiful, and that is a result of lots and lots of mulching over the last few years, getting lots and lots of organic matter into the soil. Right, now my hole is dug. Don't skip this stage. You're going to take your fork and you're going to break up the very bottom of the hole. You want to make sure that your rose can escape the hole that you've dug it and it's not trapped in there. And the next stage is to get down and dirty with it. We're going to add some organic matter now. This is my organic compost. Going to add that to the hole, and with your fork you're going to mix that up with the soil that you've loosened at the very, very bottom of the hole. And we are then ready to plant our rose. Now, there's going to be lots of different schools of thought with this next part, and I received so many messages from you that are all very, very concerned about the same thing: planting depth. Now, this very much depends on where you are in the world and the weather conditions you're going to experience. Now, here at North Lodge on the south coast of England, it's very, very rare for us to get a particularly cold spot of weather. So planting the union above ground is something that I do quite naturally. This is the union just here. This is where the rootstock for the rose is joined to the actual growth itself. If you're in a particularly cold part of the world, the suggestion is you plunge this rootstock or this union around 2 or 3 inches deep into the soil. And what that will do is that will protect it with a layer of soil from the worst of the weather. Here on the south coast, where it's very, very warm and mild, that union can stay above ground, and there's benefits of doing both. Obviously here it doesn't get cold, so it's a very, very low risk of actually being frosted off and being damaged by the weather. If you're joining me, for instance, from Canada, where it's very, very cold, you will need to put this union well underground by a couple of inches to protect it from the weather. But you may actually then get suckering growth, which is growth that comes from the rootstock and is not actually the rose that you've bought. You've got 2 different roses together. This is also the case if you have an own root rose, which is non-grafted. Very, very popular with roses that are being delivered throughout Canada and the United States, and obviously certain parts of Asia, Australia and New Zealand. But roses predominantly here in the UK are grafted, and you can leave that union above ground to make sure you don't receive suckering growth. So I've removed this country parsley from the water, and I'm now going to lightly sprinkle it with the fungal solution from David Austin Roses. You don't need a lot of this. You only need a very, very small amount. And what you need to do is simply dust that over the root system and about a teaspoon or 2 teaspoons into the very, very bottom of the hole. We are then ready to plant our rose. So I'm going to pop my gloves back on for this stage. You want to spread the roots out into the hole and make sure you have plenty of depth. The very, very ends of the roots should be touching the bottom of the hole, and the union, the graft that we've just talked about, should either be sat either at ground level just above, so you're not burying it like I'm going to do here, or if you're in a colder climate, you want to make sure that you are burying that a couple of inches deep. What you don't want to be doing is pushing the rose into the hole and everything sort of concertinaing up and squashing together. Those roots should remain as they are now, growing out and in their natural positions. So my hole depth is absolutely perfect, and I'm now a-okay to start backfilling into the pot, into the hole. So just hold the rose steady with one hand and bring that soil back in around the plant itself. Sometimes you might need to get your spade involved. Just bring that soil back. Again, the next stage is really, really important. Make sure that you can see the label and you don't bury that, and you give that a really good firm down into the ground. You'll be surprised by how firm you need to make that, and just tidy that up around. Right, there we go. We are all planted. The next thing to do is to make sure that you give your new rose a thoroughly good water. Even if it is wet or if there is rain forecast, you must give this rose a really good water to get it established and away just as soon as possible. So give it a really good drink, and you then want to keep an eye on it for the next couple of months. Water it at least once a week with around 1 or half a watering can of water once a week, and certainly until it starts to grow and wake up. Autumn is by far the best time to plant bare root roses. The soil is still warm and they're going to get themselves rooted and established before the worst of the weather sets in. They're then ready to go off the starting blocks to get themselves growing, established, and get themselves into flower for next season. Join me in the next section of videos where I plant a bare root rose into a pot.